The Galactic Council mocked Roosevelt's resolve until his fleet proved them wrong. Part 1. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Franklin Roosevelt straightened his dark blue uniform and took a deep breath. This moment would define humanity's place among the stars. "Ready, sir?" Commander Susan Clark stood at his side, her expression calm but her eyes revealing the same tension Roosevelt felt. "As ready as we'll ever be, Commander." Roosevelt nodded to the rest of their small delegation, Lieutenant Gregory Martinez and diplomatic advisor Patricia Bell. "Remember, no matter what happens in there, we represent all of Earth." The four humans walked into the vast circular chamber. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in tiered sections that rose like a giant bowl around them. The architecture was designed to intimidate visitors, and Roosevelt had to admit it worked. Crystalline structures overhead captured light from the twin suns of Centauri Prime, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform where the 7 members of the High Council sat. These were the most powerful beings in known space, representatives of the founding species who had created the Galactic Council 5,000 years before humans discovered fire. "The delegation from Earth may approach," announced a melodious voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Roosevelt led his team forward. The quiet murmurs and occasional chuckles from the assembled aliens made it clear what most thought of the newcomers. Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel only 12 years ago, making humans the equivalent of infants in galactic terms. "We recognize Admiral Franklin Roosevelt of Earth," said Zorek, the Arcturian ambassador whose blue-scaled skin shimmered under the lights. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Patricia had briefed them meant mild amusement or contempt. "You may present your petition." Roosevelt stepped forward and activated the data crystal they had prepared. A holographic display appeared above them, showing Earth's solar system and the nearby star clusters. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council," Roosevelt began, his voice strong and unwavering. "Earth comes before you seeking protected developmental status for our species and fair access rights to the resource systems within 20 light-years of our home planet. We offer cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and..." A harsh laugh interrupted him. The sound came from Vextri, the Rigelian delegate whose insectoid features remained fixed in what humans might interpret as a permanent smile, though there was nothing friendly about it. "Your species barely managed faster-than-light travel a decade ago," Vextri said, mandibles clicking. "Yet you demand equal standing? The resources you claim have been mapped by our explorers for millennia." Patricia Bell stepped forward. "With respect, Delegate Vextri, under Section 12 of the Council's Development Protection Act, emerging spacefaring species are entitled to resource priority within..." "We are familiar with our own laws, human," Zorek cut in. "Those protections apply to species with strategic value or meaningful defensive capabilities." The Arcturian gestured dismissively at the holographic display. "Earth has neither." Roosevelt kept his expression neutral despite the heat rising in his face. "We ask only for the same considerations given to the Proxians and the Deneb Collective when they joined the galactic community." This comment triggered louder laughter from various sections of the chamber. An elder Pleiadian rose from her seat, her silvery skin catching the light. "The Proxians brought revolutionary gravity manipulation technologies. The Deneb Collective offered biological innovations that extended lifespans across the galaxy." Her voice was gentle but condescending, like an adult explaining something obvious to a child. "What does Earth offer that we don't already possess in superior form?" Lieutenant Martinez shifted uncomfortably beside Roosevelt. Commander Clark's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward her sidearm before she caught herself. "Perhaps," said a new voice, "the humans could serve as entertainment. Their historical broadcasts show remarkable creativity in their fictional conflicts." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Roosevelt remained still, absorbing each slight, memorizing each face. "We have reviewed your petition," Zorek announced, not bothering to consult with the other council members. "Earth's request for protected status is denied." Furthermore, the resource-rich systems of Proxima Centauri, Tau Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani are hereby designated as open development zones for established council races. Roosevelt's jaw tightened. Those were the very systems nearest to Earth, the ones humanity had been planning to explore over the next century. "You're creating a resource blockade around our home system," Roosevelt said, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "We are allocating resources efficiently," Vextri corrected. "If humans wish access, they may apply to work for Rigelian or Arcturian mining operations. I understand your species has some limited value as manual laborers." This final insult brought fresh laughter from the chamber. Patricia Bell placed a warning hand on Roosevelt's arm as she saw his fingers curl into fists. "The council's decision is recorded," said the ethereal voice from before. "This matter is concluded." Roosevelt stood motionless for several seconds, scanning the chamber. Not all aliens were laughing. Some looked uncomfortable or even sympathetic, but none spoke up. Power in the Galactic Council clearly belonged to the strongest, not the most just. "We hear the Council's decision," Roosevelt finally said, his voice measured. "Earth acknowledges your wisdom." As the human delegation turned to leave, Ambassador Jorek called out, "Admiral Roosevelt, do not take this personally. Every young species faces this moment of reality adjustment. In a few centuries, perhaps humans will find their proper place in our community." Roosevelt paused, but didn't turn around. "Perhaps we will, Ambassador. Perhaps we will." The journey back to their ship passed in tense silence. Only when they were aboard the USS Constitution, Earth's most advanced vessel yet still primitive by Council standards, did Roosevelt allow his composure to break. "Those arrogant—" He slammed his fist against the bulkhead. "Sir," Commander Clark said quietly, "the crew doesn't need to see that." Roosevelt took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right, Susan. Thank you." He straightened his uniform again. "Martinez, set course for Earth, maximum speed." "Yes, sir. Estimated arrival in 3 days." Patricia Bell looked troubled. "What do we tell the President? The UN Security Council?" They were counting on those resource rights. Roosevelt looked out the viewport at the gleaming spires of the Galactic Council headquarters growing smaller as the Constitution pulled away. "We tell them the truth. The galaxy isn't the peaceful, advanced utopia we hoped for. It's just a bigger version of the same power struggles we've always faced on Earth." His expression hardened with resolve. "And we tell them we need a new approach." As the ship accelerated to light speed, Roosevelt retreated to his quarters. He activated his personal terminal and began recording a message. "President Warren, what we encountered today wasn't diplomacy, it was empire. The Council races see Earth as nothing more than a curiosity at best, a resource to exploit at worst." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "They believe they know humanity's capabilities and limitations. They believe they can predict our response. They're wrong on both counts." Roosevelt's eyes reflected the light of distant stars as the ship hurtled through space. "They think they've seen everything the galaxy has to offer. They haven't seen what humans can do when backed into a corner, and I intend to show them." The Galactic Council mocked Roosevelt's resolve until his fleet proved them wrong. Part 2. 3 days after the humiliation at the Galactic Council, the USS Constitution docked at the Nebraska Space Command Center, orbiting Earth. Admiral Roosevelt had barely slept during the journey home, spending most of his time drafting plans and reviewing technical specifications. "They've already started," Commander Susan Clark said, pointing to the latest intelligence images displayed on the briefing room's main screen. The images showed Arcturian survey ships entering the Proxima Centauri system. Roosevelt nodded grimly. "They're not wasting any time. They want those resources secured before we can even think about challenging their decision." President Olivia Warren entered the room flanked by Defense Secretary Alan Miller and several grim-faced military officers. Everyone stood at attention until the president waved them to be seated. "I've read your report, Admiral," President Warren said, her voice tense but controlled. "Is the situation truly as bad as you describe?" "Worse, Madam President. The Council races don't just see us as inferior, they see us as irrelevant. Their decision to open the nearby systems for development is effectively a resource blockade around Earth. Defense Secretary Miller leaned forward. Some advisors are suggesting we accept the situation and negotiate favorable labor contracts with the Arcturians. At least that would give us some access to the resources and their technology. Roosevelt's expression darkened. With respect, Mr. Secretary, that would make humanity little more than a client species. Within 2 generations, we'd be completely dependent on alien technology and goodwill. What alternative do you propose? President Warren asked. Your report mentioned a new approach but was light on details. Roosevelt activated his datapad and sent files to everyone's screens. Project Vindication. The room filled with holographic ship designs unlike anything in Earth's current fleet. Secretary Miller frowned as he studied the specifications. These designs, they don't follow standard Council configurations. Exactly, Roosevelt said with the first smile since returning from Centauri Prime. The Council races have been at peace so long they've standardized everything. Their ships, weapons, and defenses have barely changed in centuries. Roosevelt gestured to someone waiting outside the briefing room. A young woman with intense eyes and curly brown hair entered, carrying several physical models of the ships, displayed in the holograms. This is Dr. Elaine Foster, our lead engineer from the Jupiter Research Station. Dr. Foster has been analyzing the weaknesses in Council technology for the past 5 years. Dr. Foster placed the models on the table. The Council races abandoned kinetic weapons centuries ago in favor of energy-based systems. They consider physical projectiles primitive and inefficient. She pointed to one of the models. But we've developed a hybrid system that uses modified gravitic drives to accelerate specialized ammunition to velocities that can overwhelm their standard shields. Their defense systems are calibrated for energy weapons, Roosevelt added. They've optimized for efficiency rather than adaptability. Commander Clark stepped forward. My intelligence team has discovered that the Council races have grown complacent. They haven't faced a serious military challenge in over 300 years. Their tactics and protocols are predictable. President Warren studied the designs with a thoughtful expression. How long would it take to build a fleet like this? 6 months for the first battle group, Roosevelt replied. If we repurpose the asteroid belt shipyards and operate at maximum capacity. 6 months, Secretary Miller exclaimed. By then, the Arcturians will have fully established mining operations in all 3 nearby systems. Good, Roosevelt said, surprising everyone. Let them invest resources and become comfortable. Let them believe we've accepted their decision. A tall, lanky man with a serious expression entered the room. Sorry I'm late, Madam President. Traffic around Luna was terrible. He extended his hand to Roosevelt. Howard Grant, Tactical Analysis Division. I've reviewed your preliminary plans, Admiral. Bold, but they could work. Roosevelt nodded appreciation as Grant activated his own data display, showing simulations of Earth ships engaging with Council vessels. The Council expects one of 2 responses, Grant explained. Either we submit and accept their dominance, or we futilely try to copy their technology and strategies. They're prepared for both scenarios. What they're not prepared for, Roosevelt continued, is an approach they've never contemplated. Their overconfidence is their vulnerability. UN. Secretary Kevin Murphy, who had been quietly observing from the corner, finally spoke. This is extremely risky. If we fail, the Council could decide humanity represents a threat that needs to be eliminated. And if we do nothing, Roosevelt countered, we become a footnote in galactic history, a curious species that reached for the stars but lacked the resolve to claim our place among them. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the stakes. President Warren walked slowly around the table, examining each ship model carefully. Who would crew these ships, Mao? She finally asked. Roosevelt had expected this question. I've identified key personnel, people who understand what we're fighting for and who have the skills we need. He sent another file to the president's screen. Commander Clark for intelligence operations. Lieutenant Martinez to lead our scout division. I've recruited Michelle Thompson from the weapons research division and Daniel Wright from Communications. President Warren studied the personnel files, then looked directly at Roosevelt. And you, Admiral? Are you prepared to take responsibility for potentially provoking an interstellar conflict? Roosevelt met her gaze without hesitation. Madam President, the conflict already exists. The Council has made that clear. They've claimed resources that rightfully belong to humanity's future. The only question is whether we accept their judgment of our worth or prove them wrong. The President turned to look out the viewport at the blue earth below. For nearly a minute, no one spoke. When she turned back, her decision was written on her face. Project Vindication is approved, Admiral. You have 6 months to build a fleet capable of changing humanity's future. Don't make me regret this. Roosevelt stood straight. You won't, Madam President. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Foster approached. Roosevelt. Admiral, there's something I didn't mention in there. The mask phase technology is still experimental. If it fails during an engagement, then we better make sure it doesn't, Doctor, Roosevelt replied. Assemble your team. You'll have whatever resources you need. Later that evening, Roosevelt stood alone in his office, looking at an old photograph of his grandfather who had commanded ships in another war long ago. The stakes then had been the future of a nation. Now they were the future of an entire species. His communication system chimed. Sir, Commander Clark's voice came through. The Rigelians have sent a diplomatic communication. They're offering positions for 200 human workers at their new Proxima Centauri mining facility. They call it a generous cultural exchange opportunity. Roosevelt's lips formed a thin smile. Thank them for their generous offer, Commander. Tell them Earth is honored by their consideration. And should I tell them we accept? Oh yes, Commander, tell them we accept our place in the galaxy, for now. The Galactic Council mocked Roosevelt's resolve, until his fleet proved them wrong. Part 3, 6 months passed. In the hidden shipyards of Earth's asteroid belt, humans worked day and night. Giant metal structures took shape in the void, invisible to casual observation, but representing humanity's greatest technological achievement. Admiral Roosevelt floated through the construction bay of the largest shipyard, watching as workers welded sections of the USS Independence, the prototype destroyer that would lead Earth's fleet. Dr. Elaine Foster guided him through the tour, her face showing both pride and concern. We've installed the mask phase technology on all exterior sections, she explained, pointing to the ship's dark hull. When activated, Council sensors will read our vessels as having only basic propulsion and minimal defensive capabilities. Roosevelt ran his hand along a panel. And the actual capabilities? Dr. Foster smiled. The gravitic kinetic hybrid weapons are testing at 300% above our initial estimates. A single salvo should overload their standard shield configurations. Should? Roosevelt raised an eyebrow. Will? Foster corrected herself firmly. The simulations are conclusive. Commander Susan Clark joined them, her uniform rumpled from too many hours without rest. Admiral, we have confirmation that all 200 human workers have been successfully placed at the Rigelian mining facilities in Proxima Centauri. Are they reporting as scheduled? Yes, sir. The Rigelians have them doing manual labor that their own people consider beneath them. Our people are sending regular intelligence updates through the coded communication channels. Roosevelt nodded. And what's the status of the Council forces in the system? Minimal security. 1 Arcturian patrol cruiser and a handful of Rigelian transports. They're not expecting any trouble. Clark handed him a data pad. But we have another problem. Lieutenant Martinez has uncovered evidence of information leaks. Roosevelt's expression darkened as he reviewed the data. Corporate spies? We believe so. Several Earth corporations stand to make enormous profits from technology-sharing agreements with the Rigelians. They don't want Project Vindication to succeed. Increase security protocols, Roosevelt ordered, and have Martinez trace these leaks to their source. On the other side of the shipyard, Captain Nancy Rivera supervised the final weapons installation on the Independence. When Roosevelt approached, she saluted sharply. Admiral, we're ahead of schedule. The Independence will be ready for her test run tomorrow. Excellent work, Captain. You'll be commanding her during the trials. Rivera's eyes widened. Sir, I thought Commander Bell was assigned to the Independence. Commander Bell is valuable, but I need someone with fighter pilot instincts for this mission. Someone who can think creatively when systems don't perform as expected. Roosevelt placed a hand on her shoulder. That's you, Captain. Rivera straightened with pride. I won't let you down, sir. Later that day, Roosevelt participated in a secure video conference with President Warren and her Security Council. The mood was tense. The Arcturians have completed their primary extraction facility in Proxima Centauri, Secretary Miller reported. And they've begun survey operations in Tau Ceti. Our resources are dwindling, Admiral. The shipyards are consuming everything we can mine from our own asteroid belt. We're on schedule, Roosevelt assured them. The Independence begins testing tomorrow. If successful, we can proceed with the fleet deployment within 3 weeks. And if it's not successful? UN Secretary Murphy asked pointedly. Roosevelt met his gaze through the screen. Then humanity accepts its place as a second-class species in the galaxy. There have been developments on the diplomatic front, President Warren said. Ambassador Zorek has requested a meeting. He says the Council might be willing to grant Earth limited resource rights if we provide 10,000 more workers for their mining operations. Roosevelt felt his jaw tighten. They're not looking for workers, Madam President. They're looking for servants. Once we start down that path, there's no turning back. I understand your position, Admiral, the President replied, but I need options if Project Vindication fails. After the meeting, Roosevelt retreated to his small quarters on the command station. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on him. He stared at the latest intelligence photos from Proxima Centauri, massive alien mining facilities stripping resources that should have been Earth's future. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Gregory Martinez entered, looking exhausted but determined. Sir, I've traced the information leaks. They lead back to Global Resources Corporation. Their CEO has made 3 trips to Rigelian diplomatic outposts in the past month. Can you stop the leaks? Already done, sir. We've implemented a new security protocol and fed false information through the compromised channels. The Rigelians now believe we've abandoned Project Vindication in favor of a diplomatic solution. Roosevelt nodded his approval. Good work, Lieutenant. There's something else, sir. Our people at the Proxima facility report that the Rigelians are planning to expand operations into the Epsilon Eridani system next month. They're already moving equipment into position. Then our window is closing, Roosevelt said. We need to accelerate our timeline. The next day, Roosevelt watched from the command center as the USS Independence detached from the shipyard and maneuvered into position for its first test run. Captain Rivera's voice came through the communication system. Independence ready for mask phase technology test, Admiral. Proceed, Captain. Everyone in the command center held their breath as the Independence activated its experimental technology. On the tracking screens, the ship's signature suddenly changed, appearing much less advanced than it actually was. Mask phase functioning. At 100%, Dr. Foster reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Council standard sensors would read the Independence as a basic transport vessel. Weapons test authorized, Roosevelt ordered. The Independence targeted a series of asteroid drones programmed to use Council standard defensive systems. When Captain Rivera fired the gravitic kinetic weapons, the results exceeded even Dr. Foster's optimistic predictions. The drone's shields collapsed instantly under the unexpected attack. All targets neutralized, Captain Rivera reported calmly, though Roosevelt could hear the pride in her voice. A cheer erupted in the command center. Roosevelt allowed himself a brief smile before raising his hand for silence. This is only the beginning, he reminded everyone. Captain Rivera, return the Independence to dock for final preparations. We begin fleet exercises tomorrow. As the prototype destroyer returned to the shipyard, Commander Clark approached Roosevelt. Sir, a Rigelian scout ship just entered the outer solar system. Standard patrol pattern. They've been making these passes every 2 weeks since the Council decision. Let them look, Roosevelt said. All they'll see is what they expect to see. A defeated species accepting its fate. Clark nodded. Our public communications continue to show disappointment and resignation. As far as the Council knows, you've been removed from active service, a broken man who failed in his mission. Perfect, Roosevelt said. And how many ships are now complete? 38, sir. 2 more will be ready next week. Roosevelt looked out at the Independence docking with the shipyard, its dark hull now representing humanity's hope rather than its humiliation. The Council believes they know us, he said quietly. They believe they can predict our actions based on their thousands of years of dealing with other species. What they don't understand is that humans have something no other species in the galaxy seems to possess. What's that, sir? Clark asked. An absolute refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. Roosevelt turned from the viewport, his expression resolute. Prepare the fleet, Commander. It's time to show the Galactic Council exactly what they've underestimated. The Galactic Council mocked Roosevelt's resolve until his fleet proved them wrong. Part 4. All ships report ready, Admiral. Commander Susan Clark stood at attention beside Roosevelt on the bridge of the USS Constitution. The flagship of Earth's new fleet gleamed with purpose, its systems humming with power that remained hidden beneath the mask phase technology. Roosevelt surveyed the bridge crew, men and women who had worked tirelessly for 6 months, knowing that humanity's future among the stars depended on their success. Lieutenant Martinez manned the tactical station, while communications expert Daniel Wright coordinated with the 40 ships now assembled in formation behind the solar radiation shadow of Jupiter. Status of Council vessels in our sector? Roosevelt asked. 1 Rigelian scout completing its regular patrol, Martinez reported. They'll jump to hyperspace in approximately 10 minutes. Then we'll have a clear window. Roosevelt nodded. All ships to activate mask phase technology. Set course for Proxima Centauri. Transit speed at maximum. Throughout the fleet, captains acknowledged the order. The Constitution's engines powered up. Barely a vibration felt through the deck plates. Another innovation from Dr. Foster's team. Mask phase. Technology functioning at optimal levels, Foster reported from her station. To any Council sensors, will appear to be a small convoy of transport vessels. Roosevelt settled into the command chair. Begin countdown to transit. Communications. Blackout protocols in effect. As the Earth fleet prepared to depart, in the Proxima Centauri system, Admiral Jovek of the Arcturian Defense Force lounged in his command chair aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. 3 other battle cruisers floated nearby, their weapons, systems in low-power mode. The Arcturians had established themselves as the primary military presence in the system, with the Rigelians focusing on the mining operations. Status report, Jovek demanded of his second-in-command. All mining facilities operating at peak efficiency, Admiral. The human workers continue to perform adequately at their assigned tasks. And what news from Earth? Our last intelligence report indicates continued political turmoil. Their Admiral Roosevelt has been publicly humiliated and relieved of meaningful command. Their government appears ready to accept our latest terms for expanded worker agreements. Jovek's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of satisfaction. As expected, humans lack the resolve to challenge the natural order. They'll find their place at the bottom of the hierarchy like all newcomers. He gestured dismissively. Continue standard patrol patterns. I'll be in my quarters. Back in the Sol system, the Earth fleet began its departure. The Constitution led the formation as 40 ships accelerated to faster-than-light speeds. Roosevelt watched the familiar stars of home blur and stretch before the view screen shifted to navigation mode. Transit successful, Admiral, Commander Clark reported. All ships maintaining formation. ETA to Proxima Centauri. 6 hours. Maintain radio. Silence, Roosevelt ordered. Run battle simulations for all crew during transit. I want everyone at peak readiness when we arrive. For the next 6 hours, the Earth fleet traveled through hyperspace toward their target. Throughout the ships, crews checked weapon systems, ran tactical drills, and prepared for what would be humanity's first interstellar combat operation. In his ready room, Roosevelt reviewed the intelligence reports one final time with his senior staff. The Arcturians have positioned their vessels here, and here, Martinez indicated on the star map. Their flagship, the Eternal Dominion, remains in high orbit over the primary mining facility. 3 support cruisers maintain regular patrol patterns. And the Rigelian presence? Roosevelt asked. Primarily transport and mining vessels. They have some defensive capabilities but nothing significant. The Arcturians handle security for the entire operation. Captain Rivera, who had joined them, via secure channel from the Independents, spoke up. The key is to neutralize the Arcturian vessels before they can coordinate a response. Their standard protocol calls for forming a defensive perimeter around the flagship, which is exactly what we won't allow them to do, Roosevelt confirmed. Captain Rivera, your strike team will target their communication arrays first. Commander Clark, your electronic warfare division is cleared to deploy the countermeasure packages as soon as we drop out of hyperspace. As the Earth fleet neared its destination, aboard the Eternal Dominion, a junior sensor officer noticed an anomaly on his screen. Commander, I'm detecting multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration appears to be Earth transport ships? The Arcturian commander barely looked up from his station. Probably the new workers their government promised. Inform Admiral Jovek and have a reception team meet them at Docking Bay 3. Sir, their approach vector is unusual for a transport mission. They're spreading into formation patterns. Now the commander did look up, his 4 eyes focusing on the faux sensor display. That's odd. Hail them and request identification. Before the communications officer could comply, the sensor display suddenly erupted with warnings as 40 Earth vessels dropped out of hyperspace directly among the scattered Arcturian ships. Sir, the Earth vessels, they're changing. The sensor officer exclaimed as the mask phase technology deactivated, revealing the true nature of Roosevelt's fleet. Battle stations, the commander shouted, but it was already too late. The USS Independence, leading Captain Rivera's strike team, launched a precise attack that disabled the Eternal Dominion's communication array before a single distress signal could be sent. Simultaneously, 5 other Earth vessels targeted the patrol cruisers with their gravitic kinetic weapons. Admiral Jovek rushed onto his bridge just in time to see his ship's shields collapse under the unexpected assault. Impossible, he exclaimed. Their technology is primitive. How are they penetrating our defenses? Unknown, Admiral, his tactical officer replied, panic evident in his voice. Their weapons signature doesn't match anything in our database. Aboard the Constitution, Roosevelt watched as the battle unfolded exactly as planned. Status report? Arcturian. Flagship disabled, Admiral, Martinez reported with barely concealed excitement. All patrol cruisers neutralized, no casualties reported on either side. Captain Rivera reports her team has secured the communication hub, Commander Clark added. We have access to the entire Proxima Systems network. Roosevelt nodded with satisfaction. Begin Phase 2. Deploy landing parties to all mining facilities. Lieutenant Wright, broadcast our message on all council frequencies. Wright activated the ship-wide communication system. Ready when you are, Admiral. Roosevelt stood, straightened his uniform, and faced the camera. His voice was firm and clear as he addressed not just those in the Proxima system, but the entire Galactic Council. This is Admiral Franklin Roosevelt of Earth's United Space Fleet. The Proxima Centauri system is now under Earth's protection. All mining operations will cease immediately. Council vessels have 24 hours to withdraw. No hostile action has been taken against civilian personnel, and none will be if our terms are respected. He paused, then continued with emphasis. We came seeking partnership and were offered servitude. We have chosen a third option. Earth claims its rightful place among the stars not as supplicants but as equals. Roosevelt out. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Jovek watched in stunned silence as his sensors showed Earth landing craft approaching every mining facility in the system. His mighty flagship, pride of the Arcturian fleet, floated powerless, in space, surrounded by ships from a species he had dismissed as inconsequential mere months ago. How? He asked no one in particular. How did they develop such capabilities so quickly? His tactical officer had no answer. Back on the Constitution, Roosevelt turned to Commander Clark. Status of the Rigelian Communications Hub? Captain, Rivera reports it's secure, sir. We have full access to Council tactical networks. Our electronic warfare division is already implementing countermeasures throughout the system. Roosevelt allowed himself a small smile. Send word to Earth. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for possible Council counterattack, though I doubt it will. Come quickly. They'll need time to understand what just happened. As day turned to night in the Proxima Centauri system, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced something they hadn't anticipated, a species that refused to accept the limitations placed upon it. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage and nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council mocked Roosevelt's resolve until his fleet proved them wrong. Part 5 news of Earth's victory at Proxima Centauri spread through the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Galactic Council chambers on Centauri Prime erupted in chaos as representatives from hundreds of worlds demanded explanations, action, or in some cases, new alliances. Admiral Roosevelt stood in the same spot where he had been humiliated 6 months earlier. This time he wore a different expression. Not pride or arrogance, but calm determination. Commander Clark and Lieutenant Martinez flanked him while Captain Rivera and Dr. Foster remained with the fleet, ensuring Earth's hold on the Proxima system remained secure. This emergency session will come to order. The voice that once seemed everywhere and nowhere now held a note of tension. Ambassador Jorek glared at Roosevelt from his seat on the High Council. 2 of his 4 eyes were now clouded, a mark of disgrace among Arcturians after their defeat. The representative from Earth has violated Council law and committed acts of war against established Council races. Roosevelt remained calm. The Earth fleet took action to secure resources within our rightful sphere of influence, the same resources this Council denied us access to 6 months ago. Your actions were unprovoked. Vextri, the Rigelian delegate, clicked his mandibles angrily. Unprovoked? Roosevelt raised an eyebrow. Was it not this Council that mocked our petition? That opened our neighboring systems to exploitation by established races? That suggested humans might make good servants in your mining operations? His voice never rose, but every word carried throughout the chamber. Murmurs spread among the assembled representatives. Roosevelt noted that many who had laughed at him before now watched with cautious respect. You concealed your military capabilities, Jorek accused. You deliberately misled the Council. We revealed exactly what you expected to see, Roosevelt corrected. Your assumptions about humanity's capabilities and resolve were your own. We never claimed to be less than we are. An elder representative named Kalon from the Pleiadian Confederation stood, her silvery skin catching the light. Roosevelt recognized her as one who had spoken condescendingly during his first visit. Admiral Roosevelt, she said, her tone more measured now. Our preliminary analysis of your fleet's technology indicates innovations our scientists considered but abandoned centuries ago. You combined gravitic drives with kinetic weapons, an approach we deemed inefficient. Inefficient, perhaps, Roosevelt acknowledged, but effective against standardized defenses that haven't adapted in generations. Kalon nodded slowly. Perhaps we were too hasty in dismissing these humans. They have accomplished in months what would take our best engineers years. Ambassador Jorek rose to his feet. I demand this Council authorize immediate military action. The Arcturian fleet stands ready to restore order and teach these humans their proper place. And how did that approach work at Proxima Centauri? Roosevelt asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. Your ships were disabled without a single casualty on either side. Earth has no interest in destroying life, or even in humiliating those who humiliated us. We seek only what we initially requested: respect, protection of our developmental rights, and fair access to resources near our home system. From the upper tiers of the chamber, a reptilian representative from a species Roosevelt didn't recognize spoke. What guarantee do we have that Earth's ambitions stop at Proxima? What prevents humans from using these same tactics against other systems? The same thing that has always governed relations between civilized worlds, Roosevelt replied. Mutual respect and recognition of sovereignty. Earth doesn't seek dominion or conquest. We ask only for what others already enjoy, the right to develop on our own terms, not as subordinates to established powers. The 7 members of the High Council conferred among themselves while the chamber buzzed with conversation. Roosevelt could see alliances shifting before his eyes as representatives from smaller or newer council races watched the proceedings with particular interest. Finally, the council members returned their attention to the chamber. The eldest among them, a being so ancient their species was barely recognizable, spoke. The actions at Proxima Centauri cannot be undone. The capability demonstrated by Earth forces cannot be ignored. The ancient counselor's voice was thin, but carried authority earned over millennia. This council has perhaps grown complacent in its assessment of emerging species. Ambassador Zorek began to protest, but a gesture from the elder silenced him. Earth's petition for protected developmental status is approved, the elder continued. The systems of Proxima Centauri, Tau Ceti, and Epsilon Eridani are recognized as under Earth's jurisdiction for resource development. Furthermore, Earth is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with full voting rights to be determined after a standard probationary period of 1 galactic year. The pronouncement sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. Roosevelt maintained his composure, though Commander Clark couldn't suppress a small smile. "The council is adjourned," announced the ethereal voice. As representatives began to depart, many approached Roosevelt, some curious, some congratulatory, others clearly reassessing potential alliances. Ambassador Zorek made his way to Roosevelt, his posture stiff with suppressed rage. "This is not over, human." "No," Roosevelt agreed calmly. "It's just beginning. But it need not be antagonistic. The galaxy is vast, with room for all our ambitions, if we approach each other with respect rather than contempt." The Arcturian stared at Roosevelt for a long moment, before departing without another word. As the Earth delegation prepared to leave the chamber, Kalon approached them. "Admiral Roosevelt, the Pleiadian Confederation would be interested in establishing direct diplomatic relations with Earth. Perhaps a cultural and scientific exchange? Earth would welcome such an exchange, Representative Kalon." Similar approaches came from 3 other species previously aligned with the Arcturians, a development Commander Clark noted with satisfaction. Back aboard the Constitution, Roosevelt gazed out at the stars from his private viewport. The ship was preparing to return to the Proxima system, where the Earth fleet would establish a permanent presence before expanding to secure the other nearby systems now recognized as under human protection. "Sir," Commander Clark said as she entered with a data pad, "I've compiled the diplomatic overtures we've received since the council session. 23 species have requested formal relations with Earth. 7 have offered technology exchanges." Roosevelt nodded. "And from the Arcturians?" "Nothing official, but our intelligence suggests they're already reassessing their military doctrines. Dr. Foster believes they'll attempt to adapt to our approach. By which time, we'll have moved on to the next innovation," Roosevelt said with a slight smile. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, Commander. It's our adaptability, our refusal to believe that any problem is unsolvable." As the Constitution prepared to enter hyperspace, Roosevelt thought about the journey ahead. Earth now had its rightful place among the stars, not through pleading or submission, but through determination and the uniquely human trait of finding paths where others saw only walls. The Constitution's engines hummed to life, and the stars stretched into lines of light as the ship accelerated. Roosevelt thought of his grandfather's old photograph, the one that had inspired him during the darkest moments. The old naval commander would have understood perfectly. Respect is rarely given freely. Sometimes it must be earned by proving others wrong, and humanity had proven the Galactic Council very wrong indeed.